welcome to Subjective Thoughts. And our comic for today is The Crown, A Tale of Hell, Issue 2 by Dark Horse. Now, there is fighting and demons in this one, so if you are in any way squeamish, you have been warned. Also, spoilers. Alright, here's the team. So, when we left off in issue 1 of this two-parter, Gamon, Hellboy's one brother, was just talking to his sister, Gamolri? Wait. But anyway, he was talking to the sister. She was telling him, that, the mother, his mother sold him out, and his brother would be chosen as the king, the father was gonna crown. Wait. What was her name? Come on. I think Galmori's her name, because her name is similar to his. But anyway, yes, she arrived in his room and basically told him that he's been sold out by their mother. And so we begin this issue with the continuation of that conversation. Gamon argues that no, their mother loves him, that she wouldn't do it, but as his sister mentioned in the first issue, that the only thing that their mother really loves is power. That's why their parents get on so well. Well, depending how you describe the word get along, of course. Or get on. Yeah, so she tells him that their mother is out because she sold them for their freedom. And then more crackling of thunder outside, and he says a storm's coming. And she says, not coming, brother, it's here. And then more crackling, and then we go to the king's, or Hellboy's father's bedroom, where he's just had sex with his wife, Sidara. He just had sex with Sidara, and she's like, do you remember how good this was? And he said, like old times. And he said, yeah, I remember. He remembers everything. So Sidara has done something to him in the past for which he has imprisoned her. It's confirmed here that he's the one that imprisoned her. And she's like, lesson learned. And then he's concerned that she's so calm about this, so agreeable. And she says, don't worry, dear. I've resigned to Gamon's fate, whatever it may be. Then we go back to Gamon and Galmori. And he's like, what should I do? Ah, there we go. Sorry, her name is Gamori. And she's like, don't you know? And then she goes to his figurines and says, this is you? And he says, yes. And this is Losk, their brother, and he says, yes. And then she crushes it to a tiny pebble, and she said, this is what you must do. And he's like, but he's our brother. And she's like, what, you think he won't do the same to you? He'll poison you, maybe he'll slit your throat at night, because he's no brave warrior, is he now? And the more she talks, the angrier he gets, and then she leaves his room and goes down the hallway of the castle, and we see on the way she comes across her uncle, Hellboy's, Azazel, Hellboy's father's brother, basically. And she says uncle, and he says niece. And then she goes into Luska's room, and he's like, Gamori, what are you doing? What have you... She says, hello, how are you? And he says, what have you done? He already knows that something's very bad. by her presence there. Well, he is the smart one after all. Hearing you talking to my grandma and dad. Right, so so he's like, what have you done? He said, well, you know about not the crown, not the crown, because she just starts talking, and he's like, late to the game, you need to be catching up on current events. First, heart to heart with Gamona, she's telling what she's done. He's like, oh no. And she said, now you, and as she entered, she put a chair against the door. And now we hear thumping outside, and she gives him a dagger, and she said, you want this? And then Gamon breaks through. And and then he starts attacking Lusk, and basically you start fighting. And Lusk is trying to convince him, I wouldn't do that, I wouldn't do that, I wouldn't try to kill you. And they keep fighting. Lusk finds a gauntlet on one of his walls. And basically they keep fighting. And then we see it at top of one of the towers. The mom, Sidara, is telling her daughter, proud of yourself, are you? And then she says, you do what you have to do now, mother. Where did I learn that? Yeah, I mean, she's effectively like her mom. Even looks a lot like her. It's a different color. And basically the sister doesn't really have anything to gain here because she'll never be the one that wears the crown. The Order of the Fly wouldn't allow it. I guess like her parents, they agree that she's far too dangerous for it. Or perhaps too destructive, who knows. Yoda would never allow it, so she's like, why should I care? And then we'll go back to the brothers. They keep fighting and calling each other names. And then some other room we see, because Gamon has no idea about the crown. He's like, crown? What crown? And then we see Hellboy's father standing in the room where the crown is, and then imagining himself wearing it and being the king. And then sounds like, ahem. And that's his brother. It's like, sorry to interrupt. And he's like, have you already a thing of beauty? A shame you'll never wear it. Because Hellboy's father apparently has just too many enemies, so he'll never be able to become the king of hell, or I'm assuming that's what they're vying for. And then he's like, and so my hopes lie with him. And then we go back to Gamon and Lusk. They continue to fight, falling down the stairs. And he's like, him, have you already chosen? And he's like, whoever I choose, it's, and then here's the crash and clutter of their fight. And then he goes out the door, and he's like, son of a. So that's where Hellboy gets that. Hellboy says, son of a, never finishes though. And then he's like, wait, what? What are you? Don't you see that they've played us? Lusk is telling Gamon that they turned us against one another, and he says it was Gamori and Lusk points out there's nothing for her in this, really, and there isn't. And he's like, forget father, you see, we don't need him, we can. And then their father arrives, and he's like, you can what? And then Lusk is trying, like, no, father, it's just Gamon gets confused, and I was trying to tell him. And Gamon's like confused, and then their father yells, enough. And they both stop, and they're lying there. And then on top of the staircase, you see Sidara and Hellboy's dad, like, and you. And he says, me, and you see the daughter basically escaping. Your sons, madam, he points to them. And she's like, oh, so now they're my sons. And he said, better I should father a new son on some dirt-crawling human hag than place a crown upon either of these creatures' heads. And she said, you wouldn't dare. And he says, no. And she tells him, I need to, and if I were to tell my father your grand plans, how do you suppose he And he points out there, your father wouldn't care. He didn't care. He didn't wake up when I banished you. He's not going to wake up now. He's asleep on the throne. I think that's basically the one that Hellboy kills. Is again, in one of the stories he goes to, when he goes to hell, there's a devil there that he kills him because he's just sitting there effectively sleeping. So that's him. He's an absent father and an absent king. His time, Sidara, is done. And then you hear the clock bong, and he says, and so is yours. And then demon soldiers appear, and they lead her back to the pit. It's always a pleasure, and I'll see you in 100 years maybe. And then she tells him, be careful, Azael. Be careful. And he's looking down angry, and then sees brother behind him. Hellboy's, Hellboy's uncle, actually, uncle. Father of son on a dirt crawling human hag. Is it possible? Can it be done? He says. And then the last panel, we see a woods, a white sky, and a young maiden running around with a broom, and that's obviously supposed to be Hellboy's mother as a young woman. And then to be continued in the kingdom. And that is it. That's the end of the story. Alright, so first cover, saw not bad composition. Again, you see the Sidara there, and then the clock behind her, indicating, time's ticking and everything's kind of broken around. Interesting image, though cover B has a far more appropriate and logical cover for what happens in the story, but hey, I got what I got. And I guess let me show you a page of the art, even though it's the same thing that's on the cover. Alright, so there we go. Yeah, I bitched quite a lot about this in the video of the first issue. It's just, I don't think I would. If I saw that this is the interior, I don't know if I would have bought it, honestly, even though it's a Mike Mignola story, and it's related to Hellboy. It's just not really, again, I don't know. I don't know how much artists get paid. And I get it, there's different stuff, but just look at this. Look at that knee. That knee is so not proportionate. I get it, it's probably closer to us, but still, it's just, it's not really, again, I know Mike Mignola's style is abstract, but it's very detailed, and it looks, a million times nicer than this. It just has an atmosphere to it. This just is, look, they're having the sex. Well, they just finished having the sex. So, it's just, it's not, I wish Mike Mignola did the art in these, or at least had someone else do it, because it's just, again, I get it, it's the style, but it's just, I would expect something far more high quality, basically. I know it's a shitty thing to say, perhaps, but it's just, again, you basically pay $5, which here would be 20-something shekels for me, and this is what I get. And I'll say this again, I've seen nicer art and nicer even comics online the art style looks way better, so it's just, again, disappointed someone with the name Warwick draws like this. But that's about the art. Alright, as far as the story, it is really interesting to learn really why Hellboy's father, Azael, had a child with a human hag. Or a human woman in this case. What was the reason of Hellboy's conception? And now we know. I wonder if Mike Mignola always planned to tell this later, or is it just something more recent? Did he always have this in the back of his mind? Because again, in that story where he's dreaming or hallucinating, what happened there many years ago. We see Hellboy's father turning to him in the dream or vision saying, "My favorite son." So again, was this always the intent for him to have him rule? From what we learn here, basically he wanted a son that would be better than the two ones that his demon wife gave him, that would be smarter and more capable. As again, each one is as again, Lusk is a smart one, but Gamora, that's my grandma, but Gamora is the strong one. Basically, if one demon son had both of those qualities, I guess he wouldn't have to worry, because that has to kind of make you think of Loki and Thor. Now, Thor's like the brawn and all that. Not that Thor's stupid, but Lusk looks like he's the, cunning type. So it kind of feels like that kind of dynamic. But yeah, interesting. He decided to father a child with a mortal. I wonder if perhaps he's done so because he thought that such a child would be easier to control, to raise as he pleases. Because he's obviously married the demon daughter of, I suppose, maybe the king of hell. But their offspring are not, perhaps not what he wanted. Again, both him and Sadara agreed that their daughter is far too dangerous, too cunning. Maybe the Order of the Fly just wouldn't trust her to not just get rid of them later on. And it's the reason they don't want her on that throne or with that crown. But yeah, so Hellboy has been fathered to effectively be his father's pawn, I think. He would have raised him to be obedient to him. And as we know of Hellboy, he would have been a lot more capable than those two chuckleheads. And then, he would have ruled hell, but his father would have been behind in the shadows, because he himself would have not been able to rule. They had too many enemies, what we learn here. But also on the day that Hellboy has appeared in hell, and his birth, and his arm was cut. Oh yeah, they don't get to the right hand of doom part. I wonder how that's related to everything. But the point remains here that that's probably the reason why Hellboy was fathered, but it looks like we're going to have to wait for the kingdom in order to find out more, I'm assuming. Maybe that's where we see how his father seduced his mother to the evils of witchcraft, and then again, because it's not like she got pregnant. Hellboy was inside of her for many decades, and then he just brought her to hell and ripped her apart, and boom, there's Hellboy. So that's I really hope the kingdom's gonna have a different artist. Although not the one who worked on Ms. Truesdale and the Fall of Hyperborea. No. No, thank you. I also hope Mr. Johnston Codwell's not gonna be it either. Wish Mike Mignola would have the energy to do the art again. I miss him doing it, and at least, I don't know, someone would have. To be fair, I get the suspicion that they assign comics, like the artists, to, like, the comics they think they're gonna sell less. They just give the artist that doesn't do such superb work. And also, like I said, this has the cheap, flimsy paper. So that means they didn't have a lot of hope in this one, though there are many fans of Hellboy. But I think there's not, they couldn't see enough piles of dollars, perhaps. At least that's what I suspect with many other comics. You see the paper quality's a little less, you're thinking, they didn't have faith in this one now, did they? Maybe this is the case here. But yeah, it is interesting though to see the reason for Hellboy's conception, because as we know, it all went wrong because of Rasputin. He summoned Hellboy, but he didn't end up with him either. He ended up with Professor Broom and everyone that was there that day. So in that regard, he was raised to be far more human than demon. Not even far more. He's essentially a human. If it wasn't for the red skin, horns, and eyes and tail, you'd think, that's just a regular good old man. Yeah, nope, not in this case. He's obviously looks like a demon. Looks like his dad. But yeah, well, I guess that's left to be seen. I think I will pick up Kingdom, because I do want to find out what's going to happen. As it is intriguing. It is indeed intriguing what's going to happen next. But yeah, another thing, reading this, I think they should have just made this one long shot instead of 2 parts. Because although stuff does happen, this feels like it would have just been a long one shot than bothering with two issues. Because it's kind of, for what? All of this could have been stuffed into one. That's another thing. I mean, they just sometimes either they give the series too little amounts of issues, or they give it more than it needs here. And again, this would have just been should have just been a one shot, I think. Because if this is all that was going to be told in here, what was the point? Or if it's going to continue in the Kingdom, why just not make it into a full series then? And now again, it's not like I know. I'm not in the business of comics. I've never been doing publishing before. And maybe they have their reasons that I just don't understand because I don't work in this. But it just feels like, for what? I mean, okay, maybe to sell more covers, but, and again, forgive me, would you run to buy this cover? Probably not. Unless, of course, you're fans of Mr. Johnson Caldwell. In that case, I guess you would, but as it is, would you run to buy it? So I don't know. I don't think they're going to bank much on covers, considering it's only cover A and cover B in this case. Well, I suppose the Mike Mignola cover would be quite popular, though. But, yeah. I don't know, so I guess this was The Crown, Tale of Hell. Had some interesting new discoveries about Hellboy's conception. Of course, it's still left to be seen how he approached his mother. And also interesting, why did Hellboy's uncle said, is it possible? Is it not possible for demons in Mike Mignola's universe to father children with mortals? Again, each storyteller picks his own rules. It's like for vampires and shit. Like some stories, vampires can't go out into the sun, like Dracula. Other ones, they can have children. They can go out in the sun. They can even eat human food. So who knows? Like, I guess you pick your own thing. Or like in like a Night Huntress series, a man who was beginning to turn into a vampire was able to father the vampire huntress, basically. So I guess here maybe it's a more complicated thing. Maybe it's not a thing of, sperm going into the egg. Maybe that's the difference here. It's not like just having sex with the mortal woman and she becomes pregnant. It's, I don't know. Maybe it's a different process here. Something related with magic. I don't know. That's curious, really. I'm saying that is it possible? Oh yeah, and there's the other thing I wanted to say. What happened to his father? Like, I take it that he was punished for, I guess, creating Hellboy, essentially. But and considering he's frozen in ice, I wonder. Now, I'm not saying that Sadara is an ice demon of some sort, but she does look like she would be, doesn't she? She's this pale blue. She's got white hair. I wonder if she's the one that, I don't know, somehow she was released from the pit and then she turned him into, she trapped him in ice, essentially. Like, he kept her trapped down below in the pit. And what has she done that he decided to trap her? Has she betrayed him in some way? Has she tried to overthrow him? Who knows? Something happened there. Hellboy's father paid a price in order to have him. But why, I wonder, and was it really worth it if in the end he just got trapped in ice and never even got to raise Hellboy? Wouldn't it have been better if he kept him somewhere on Earth? Yeah, and so, nature versus nurture kind of thing. Hellboy was nurtured by, humans and turned out to be essentially human, despite his appearance. Who knows? Maybe his mother's nature helped somewhat. Although she went on to do witchcraft and all sorts of things, maybe she did have a bit of more evil in her. Who knows? A lot of interesting questions. I certainly would like to find out more. But again, I hope the art will be better. That's really it. This was the end of this one. I go back again to saying this should have just been a long one-shot. Think it would have been better, but hey, if you love Hellboy and you're curious, I don't know, maybe you thought, why was he born, the origin and all that, pick this one up. Give it a read. It's not really much there to read to begin with. In terms of, you don't get a whole dump of information, but you will learn something new. And if this does continue in the kingdom, then, well, perhaps we'll learn more. But we shall see. Alright, folks, so that is it. Let me know what you thought of The Crown, The Tale of Hell, Issue 2. And that is it. Remember, collect what you're passionate about and share it on YouTube. Bye!